Seeing a pixelated mess of blood and gore with my gun centered in the lower middle of the screen, my first steps into Nightmare Reaper brought back memories of playing Doom or Quake on a white CRT monitor with a trackball mouse. There's a special kind of crude nostalgia old-school shooters bring forth, a heyday of violence and gunplay that paved the way for a generation. I went into this game hearing that it was a roguelite, old-school FPS inspired by the pioneering games for the FPS genre, but what I got was so much more. At Hell's Gate, Nightmare Reaper's plot is straightforward enough. You are a lady confined to what appears to be a sanatorium after experiencing a bloody breakdown. As you progress the story, some papers on your desk start piling up, drip-feeding you backstory. When you aren't messing around in your small room, you can take a nap to get to the real meat of the game. In the protagonist's dreams, she slays countless legions of the undead in strange, fantastical environments using well-placed kicks and a seemingly endless barrage of weaponry. You'll make your way through randomly generated levels, taking on undead hordes and demonic creatures, dodging traps, and collecting guns and tools to help give you a fighting chance. When you finish a level, you're given the option of keeping one level 1 weapon and forced to sell all the others. Nightmare Reaper's core gameplay loop happens in the dream world, where you'll start in an enemy-free spawn room. There are roguelite aspects where the map is semi-procedural, the enemies and weapons you'll find are randomly generated, and the same goes for the traps and power-ups. You'll head into a room, start messing up the enemies in there, collect random weapons and rinse and repeat until you find the purple pentagram that will end the level. Some secret rooms contain false walls concealing treasure troves. Other times, you'll find challenge rooms with no enemies you can run for weapons and loot, and there are even a couple of Easter eggs here and there. A lot of the fun comes from the gunplay, which is smooth, fast, and just varied enough to keep things interesting even when rerunning levels. Killing enemies makes a gory mess, which you can adjust if you want a tamer experience, and, though it's pixelated, it's still satisfying to see, especially when you pierce their jugular and watch them stand and spew blood for a few seconds before keeling over. Is it needlessly violent? Probably. But that's the fun of it. The gameplay loop as a whole may seem juvenile and basic, but I'd argue that's where its strength is. It's based on old-school games where really you get a bite-sized overview of the plot and are set loose to ravage enemies in varied arenas, simple and fun. And this game nails that in spades. It helps that once the combat cranks up, so does the music. Nightmare Reaper features a brutal, heavy metal soundtrack courtesy of Andrew Hulshult, the composer behind Doom Eternal's The Ancient Gods DLC soundtrack. However, the real highlight here is the weapons, ranging from magic to guns to swords and even shields. The arsenal the game puts at your fingertips is vast, with a class system consisting of your typical common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. Higher class weapons can be outfitted with a variety of modifiers to augment their capabilities. You also aren't strictly limited to just standard guns here. You can pick up gemstone staffs, buzzsaw launchers, orbital strikes, and even strange alien artifacts. Or, if you aren't great with aiming, you can opt to use melee weapons such as katanas, whips, and even a sword and shield, all also having something attached to their alt-fire. Seriously, I was coming across some over-the-top weapon I hadn't seen before on almost every level. There was even a point where I found a gun that shot homing bees at people. I can't make this stuff up. Every weapon also has an alt-fire, meaning they aren't one-trick ponies, they have versatility in the field. For example, the buzzsaw launcher lets you use the buzzsaws as a melee weapon, so you have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon in one razor-sharp package. I cannot stress enough that the weapons are this game's bread and butter. I could write a whole essay here on the crazy stuff I found in this game. If you like wacky and wild weapons, you will have a blast with Nightmare Reaper. I will say this though, if you can, test your new toy in an open space. I can't count how many times I turned myself into a black smear on the ground because the gun I found was highly explosive. When I have to struggle to pry myself away from a game to actually write my review, you know it's done something very right. Minor gripes such as the lack of a proper title screen and the procedural generation skipping leg day here and there are completely outweighed by how much raw fun can be had from blasting demon hordes away with some of the most creative guns I've seen in a long while. With a rocking soundtrack, addicting gameplay loop, and creative progression system, Nightmare Reaper delivers a bloody and bountiful harvest. If you're a fan of old-school shooters, there's no reason to miss out on this one.